Well, the other career being trawled through right now, Scott Morrison's after the ministry's saga. We had yesterday Anthony Albanese detail what's been found so far, but also talk about a further inquiry as well. Joining me is constitutional law expert Professor Anne Twomey. Thanks very much for your time. I guess this is what we expected from yesterday. Nothing illegal happened against conventions, though, if you like, or responsible and accountable government. Did any of this surprise you?
No, it's consistent with everything that I and others have been saying for some time. Of course, the Governor-General under the Constitution can appoint people to administer different departments. That's allowed. The Constitution doesn't say very much about all these sorts of things. It's intended to be flexible and allow for change over time, but we have seen there's obviously a bit of a hole in the system to the extent that these things can be done and not made public. So there's a pretty easy fix involved. As the Solicitor General said, it can be done either by changing practices or, more importantly, having legislation to ensure it doesn't happen in the future.
Right, it's pretty easy legislation. It's going to get support. If you want to unwind it, you'd have to be public about it anyway. Should we just do that? I mean, is there another? Yeah, you go on, sorry.
I was going to say that if it's in legislation and you wanted to do something that was sneaky and secret, if you had to legislate to change the legislation to allow you to do something sneaky and secret, well, it's not really going to work because by then everybody knows what you want to do. So putting it in legislation is actually pretty good protection.
A neat fix, and crucially, it doesn't involve a referendum. So do we need further inquiry? What did you make of this suggestion?
Oh, look, sorry, from my point of view, I think it would be useful to get more information about, for example, what the practices are, what's published and what's not. So, for example, charter letters, which are the things that tell ministers which part of a portfolio they're responsible for at the moment and not published either. And if we've got a principle that the people should know who is responsible for what, then I think we need to look at publishing those. The other thing I think we also need to know is that, whether anything went wrong, either in the public service or in ministers' offices, so that maybe we can make reforms there. So, did public servants suggest that this was not such a good idea, or did they feel that they were compelled not to raise fearless concerns to ministers? Do they need more protection so that they can do that? And what about the role of ministerial advisors in their offices? I mean, do they need their wings clipped? So it might be that some kind of an inquiry gives us a better idea about accountability also through public servants and ministerial officers as well.
And then the other person has to be the Governor-General, does it not? We keep hearing from Labor, well, from what we know what the Governor-General did from the public record, but we've just got statements saying the Governor-General obviously complied with the Prime Minister's directions. That's fine, that's what we'd expect. That it wasn't up to the Governor-General to publish it, that's fine. But we don't know maybe whether there was advice, pushback, whether they sought advice around whether not just the initial appointments were public, maybe there would have been an expectation they were. But a year later, when Scott Morrison went back to do it again, at that point, whether you'd say, are these going to be made public? Surely that would need to be examined if we're looking through all the other roles you just mentioned.
Well, people raise that a lot, but the thing that is not clear to people is that my understanding is that these particular kinds of appointments, so where you've already been appointed a minister, all right, and that was made public, but then you're appointed to be able to administer another department, those kind of appointments were never made public. So how can we say we have an expectation on the Governor-General to have noticed that they weren't made public and then think there's something fishy about that when every single other one that he'd ever signed in the past wasn't made public either? I mean, we're setting contradictory standards here. And the other point here is it really appropriate to start delving into communications between the Governor-General and the Prime Minister, which are supposed to be in confidence? Don't necessarily think that's a good idea. Ultimately, the stuff about publication, which is the key thing, and secrecy, which is the key thing, that was really happening at the other end of the system, and that was at the Prime Minister and Cabinet. So I think that's the main area for focus.
Some others have suggested that the key notification, if you like, was the really important one was Scott Morrison telling the minister, the relevant minister, would it be
The relevant minister,
important to
yep.
know? Yeah, would there be an expectation that after the initial wave happened, that again the Governor General would give that advice or seek advice on that, and would it be worth knowing exactly what happened there?
Okay, so what's going on here is that normally what happens, Governor General signs document, right, sends it back to Prime Minister and Cabinet, they take it and then they do whatever's necessary with it. So if it needs to be put on the Federal Register of Legislation, they do that. And then they send a copy to the relevant department and the minister concerned. Now, what's gone wrong, seems, is that the department didn't notify the relevant department, so the public servants didn't know that they had another minister they were responsible to, and nor did the relevant minister know. But again, that's not done up the Governor-General's end of the track. He signs the paper, it goes back to the bureaucrats, they process it. So it's at the point of the processing happening, what went wrong there? Why wasn't it done in the normal way? Now, we do know that normally it wouldn't have been put on a public register, okay, and it should, so let's change that. But what we don't know is, well, why wasn't a copy, for example, sent to the relevant department head of the department, who then would have presumably notified the relevant minister? I mean, that's the way the system's supposed to work. And if we're expecting that the Governor-General is supposed to have an antenna up saying, oh, you know, has the Prime Minister secretly done these things without telling his ministers? Look, frankly, no one was expecting that until, you know, about a week and a half ago. Suddenly we discovered it happened. But I don't think we can judge the Governor-General for not anticipating that the Prime Minister might do something weird like that. Yeah.
I guess the interesting thing might be whether or not the Governor-General noticed, or someone in his office noticed after the initial part, that a very unusual move wasn't made public, but I guess that's all I'm suggesting, whether we'd find out whether he noticed or not. But look, take your point. There are different views on this, and we appreciate your time, and Twomey, thank you.
Okay, you're welcome.